Welcome to my review of Street Fighter X Mega Man for the PC. Again, this game came out in 2012, as it says on the title screen, and I totally missed this game, but it's definitely a PC-only exclusive as far as I'm aware. And it's actually a really good Mega Man game. Now, I would put it a little bit under the mainline Mega Man games. You know, I think all the Mega Man games for the original NES are pretty similar quality, and, you know, aside from maybe the first one being one of the weaker ones, I think they're all pretty similar. It's hard for me to really, I beat them all years ago, but it's hard for me to really rate them and say, well, you know, one is much better than the other. For me, they all kind of felt similar, which was a good thing. I really enjoy the Mega Man games, but for me, they are, you know, in that upper level, you know, as far as rating games, I'd probably, you know, rate them in the 8 type of territory. You know, I think they're all, like, quite good games. And this is definitely very similar, but I would end up, you know, this is going to end up being a little bit lower for me because the stages don't really offer a challenge, but I like how there is a shooter style stage in this level, which gives a little bit of variety, but it's a brief section, but it's cool that they kind of included it to make a little shooter style stage, you know, to switch it up a little bit. But it's a very easy section, and most of the stages are very easy compared to other Mega Man games, so you don't have that same replayability and challenge that you get in the main Mega Man games. But I would say that it's really not that far off. I mean, playing through it, the enjoyment I get out of the game is definitely, you know, on par with what I would get playing through any of the standard Mega Man games on the NES, which is what this is based off of. And I would say the enjoyment is definitely up there. If anything, you know, it may even be more of a fun game to just play through because it's a little bit easier of a game, but yet it still has challenge in a few parts. So it's not going to be a game that you're probably going to blaze through immediately. But you probably won't get stuck on it for too long if you're familiar with these types of games. I'm also going to drop a link to my tutorial in the description, so check that out if you're interested. I explain all my strategies and what I did. And this is one of the more challenging platforming sections that you saw briefly, and it's really not that hard, but the game really, it just doesn't get, you know, too challenging. So, but some of the boss fights can be tough, so but there are ways to get around that. You know, you can, if you're conservative, you can conserve all your energy tanks and get to the end with maybe 6 energy tanks pretty easily. And energy tanks do waste permanently. So, you know, you want to, like, save them for parts that you're really going to need them out. Like maybe the final bosses would be a good place to use them. Because you have to fight a boss rush where you fight all 8. You know, initially you have to fight. This is one of the special stages with the 4. Or in this case, there's only 3. Sagat is not in this for whatever reason, but there's Balrog, Bison, and Vega. And they have their own little stages, and there's 3 of them at the end of the game. Initially, you have to defeat the 8 boss masters, which they're not robot masters in this game. They're 8 Street Fighter characters that you have to defeat. When you defeat one, you get their power. So you can, of course, just like all the Mega Man games, if you defeat a boss, or one of the 8 bosses, I should say, you get their power. And then you can equip that power at any time. You know, they have limited amounts of bar that, you know, meter that you can use, but you can refill it. And it gets filled up when you die, too. So you have plenty overall. And you can use those weapons, as you can see me here using the flame here in Vega's stage, which is one of the harder stages. You can use, you know, different weapons for specific scenarios. The Buster Shot will get you through most of this game, aside from the boss fights. So, you know, you won't have to switch weapons a hell of a lot for specific scenarios, but there's a few sections where it's useful to do so. But yeah, you get the boss weapons when you beat one of the 8 boss masters, you know, the first 8 that show up, and you can fight them in any order, which is what you're going to want to do because you're going to want to target the bosses that are weak to certain weapons. So there's a specific order to do it in to do the most damage to each boss and make the fights easier. Just like all the other Mega Man games. Same principle, it's just with Street Fighter characters, basically, is what it is. So then at the very end here, this is the hardest stage. You have to fight the 8 bosses again, like you always do in the series. And, you know, you want to pick the right weapon for the right boss, obviously. At this point, you have all the weapons unlocked because you beat all the 8 bosses to unlock this final stretch. Now, you get passwords and unlimited continues for the first 8 robot masters or bosses. And then after that, there's no more passwords, so you have to beat those 3 stages without shutting the game off. There's no save state since it's a PC game. So, you have to beat those 3 stages without shutting it off. But you do get to continue on the last stage you made it to still. So you don't get set too far back. But if you shut the game off, you will have to start back. Now, I do recommend in my tutorial conserving energy tanks and trying to bring as many as you can to the final area. You can bring 6 of them at least to the final areas, which would make things a lot easier. I should have done that. But I was a little wasteful when I initially played the game. So this is M. Bison, the final boss, and this is by far the hardest boss in the game. I also showed Vega briefly. His fight is the second hardest fight in the game, and it's very hard. But, this fight's much harder than the Vega fight, so it's good to bring some energy tanks so you can last out this fight. But it's a cool final boss. It's cool to see Bison represented in this more cartoony kind of style. More of a miniature Bison with a big head. But it's cool how they translated, or I should say I think one person made this. It's cool how this was translated to, Street Fighter was translated into the Mega Man visual style and gameplay style. Very cool. And I really like the concept, and I really like the game. I enjoyed it a lot. And for me, I would probably give this game a 7.5 out of 10. And as I said, normally I'd give the Mega Man games usually in the 8 range or so for most of them, I think. But this one is a little bit lower for me because I don't think it has, quite the same replay as the mainline Mega Man games, just because it's a little bit too easy as far as the stages are concerned. I mean, I know speedrunners can get some gameplay depth out of, trying to do it as fast as possible. But I don't think there's a lot to try to master this game normally. I don't think there's a hell of a lot of replay. I don't think it would take real long to really master the stages, because the stages are quite easy. There's a few that are slightly challenging in a few spots, but really, once you know what to do, quite easy. Very easy stages. And the other Mega Man games, of course, they could have very challenging stages. This doesn't have that, but it does have boss fights that are on par with what you would see in a lot of the Mega Man games. So the boss fights can be fairly challenging, as you'd expect in the Mega Man games. But the levels themselves are very easy overall. So I think that kind of does take it down a little bit. But if you're looking for a Mega Man game that's just a little bit easier to beat, this one took me around 5 hours and 19 minutes. It really wasn't too bad. This is a good choice, and it's definitely worth playing through. If you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.